Okay, it's 9:30. Welcome, everybody. The Committee on Audit will come to order. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Killeen.
Present.
Commissioner Kniezek.
Here.
Commissioner Clark-Coleman.
Here.
Commissioner Dobb.
Here.
Chair Basham.
Here.
You have a quorum present.
Thank you. Next item.
B, approve the September 9, 2020 meeting minutes.
Is there a motion?
Move to approve. Oh, support.
Okay, I heard Commissioner Clark Coleman first, and I heard support from Commissioner Killeen. So
Yes.
any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Ayes have it. Next item.
Item D1 under new business. Communication from Wayne County Legislative Auditor General forwarding a copy of the Office of Legislative Auditor General's Corrective Action Plan and Assessment for the Department of Health, Human and Veteran Services Correct Care Solutions / WellPass contract.
Okay, I'd
Cheryl,
like
if you
to.
could let me share the screen, please.
Yes.
Okay, I'd like to welcome our Auditor General, her staff, her guest, and we have had discussions in pre-audit on the direction that we're going to run this meeting. So, Ms. Cora, please proceed.
I'm going to share my screen. Tell me if you can see it. Can you see it?
Comment.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. We're going to start with D1. This is our office performed a performance audit. Actually, let me see if we have any guests online from the Department of Health, Human and Veteran Services, or their finance area. I know I saw Dr. Keith. I'm not sure if anybody else is on. They could introduce themselves to start off.
Yeah, Keith Dugokensky from Department of Health, Human and Veteran Services.
Welcome.
Hi, this
Okay.
is Nellie Lee from Health, Human and Veteran Services. I've also been notified by Division Director of Clinical Services, Jennifer Caruso, that she's experiencing some trouble with the audio, so she will be logging off and logging back on.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Katie Snow. I'm the Contract Service Manager.
Welcome, Katie.
Hello.
Okay. Marcy Coro, Auditor General, and I also have Crystal Thomas and Andy Ray. They're going to do part of the presentation. But I'm going to start. This is our performance audit that we did we presented back in September of 2019. This was on the Correct Care, which is now WellPass, their contract to provide jail medical services within the jail. Within that audit, we had 22 recommendations. Of those 22 recommendations, just a high-level recap, there was 15 based on our corrective action plan that have been implemented. One's no longer applicable, and 6 are considered in process. So the way we're going to go through this corrective action plan and our assessment is, I'm going to go through the ones that are implemented at a very high level, and then I'm going to turn it over to Crystal and Andy, and they'll go through the ones that are in process and not applicable. Does that sound good?
Yep.
Okay. Get started. The first recommendation was 2018-01, that Correct Care Solutions, and I'm going to call them Correct Care Solutions because that's what they were at the time of our report. Their invoices lack supporting documentation. We had recommended that the Wayne County Health, Veterans, and Community Wellness Management implement procedures to ensure validation of actual costs that are submitted by CCS. Within their corrective action plan, HHVS and their finance, they developed a policy and procedure to validate the actual costs on a test basis. And so when we did our corrective action, we went out and assessed, and we confirmed that they had the policy and procedure was developed and that the actual validation is taking place. Do we have any questions on that one?
Questions? Please proceed.
And again, these are all implemented based on our assessment. Number 2, we had recommended that the Wayne County Health, Veteran, Community Wellness Management implement procedures to ensure validation of actual costs that are submitted by CCS. HHVS and their finance developed a policy and procedure to validate startup costs, and we confirmed that the validation of startup costs did actually take place. They actually went back and looked at the startup costs on a test basis to make sure that they actually had validation and support for the costs.
Cool.
The next one, number 3, we recommended that the department implement procedures to ensure supporting documentation is requested and received, such as payroll registers. This would allow management to form a reconciliation to ensure the accounting is only paying for services actually received. The department and their finance developed procedures in order to allow them to validate personnel costs, and they were going to do it on a test basis. We confirmed that the validation was taking place, and there was a reconciliation of the time system and the time cards. So we found no issues here. Moving on to number 4A. And this is a series of recommendation, finding 4, there was A through G. So A, we had recommended that they implement procedures to ensure that CCS can produce accurate, comprehensive, valid reports to support not only the staffing levels in the jail, but the actual costs that were incurred. The department developed procedures to validate the reports from WellPath to support the staffing level and the actual costs. You know, at the time they weren't able to get all the reports they needed, but now they're able to. And we confirmed that the procedures is in place, they're receiving the comprehensive reports, and they're using them to validate the staffing costs. B, we recommended the department implement procedures to ensure CCS classifies productive time as hours actually worked, that all time not spent actually providing services classified as non-productive. If you remember, this is the one where they had the holiday time kind of backwards, holiday and vacation time. If you were on vacation, they classified it as productive time, and if you were working on a holiday, it was non-productive. So it was kind of backwards. So the department developed procedures to validate the reports from WellPath to ensure that the coding is correct for the productive and non-productive time. We confirmed that the procedures were in place, reports are being provided, and there is a validation taking place to ensure that productive and non-productive hours are classified correctly. And we actually, when we did our testing, we selected a sample time period that had holidays in it so we could make sure it was coded correctly. C, we recommended the management implement procedures to ensure that CCS classified time as hours actually worked, holidays, vacation time taken when calculating their staffing requirements. The department developed procedures that require the validation of actual hours worked and their sick and vacation time when calculating staffing requirements. We reviewed the actual hours worked, the sick and vacation time to ensure the hours were properly classified as productive and non-productive. This one was kind of similar to the one before it. We found no issues with this. Number D, we recommend the department implement procedures to ensure that the agency nursing staff hours are properly reported and billed based on actual services performed. The department developed procedures to validate agency nursing staff hours. And then we reviewed that a reconciliation of hours on reports to time cards to ensure the hours billed were for services actually performed. And this was for the nurses. There's only a few of them that they received from the staffing agency.
Mr. Chair, this is Commissioner Dobb. Sorry.
Commissioner Dobb. Oh, yeah.
Thank you. Marcy, I know yesterday in, I can't remember which meeting it was, Commissioner Baker McCormick was asking about, I think it was that issue, the billable hours.
Yeah,
so I don't know if she's on this, she's in this meeting. I know she's not on this committee, but just wanted to point that out. Was this the same? Was this the same issue?
Yes, these ties were the productive and non-productive hours and all the timesheet issues. Correct.
Right. Yeah. So okay. Thank you.
Thank you. We're on number E. We recommended the department implement procedures to ensure that all employees and agency staffing use the timekeeping process for recording their time, and when reconciling time, ensure that time reports only include hours worked within a Wayne County facility. At the time we did our original engagement, there was some of the staffing nurses were using handwritten timesheets. Some were signing in through the automatic system. We found some errors where nurses may have been in a different facility but billed to the county, but it was actually on a report to the county's billing, but they were actually not charged to the county. So the department developed procedures to ensure that the employees and agency and staff use the timekeeping process, so that way everybody is capturing their time the same way. Then we reviewed that the reconciliation was being submitted to verify hours are worked from the summary reports and reconciled to timesheets. Number F, we recommended the department implement procedures to ensure that CCS was providing staff as required per the contract. Based on the original engagement, they were required to provide 103.5 FTE hours. And we found, based on our analysis, when we actually looked at what was actually productive, non-productive, who was working, who wasn't, that in some occasions, they weren't providing the 103.5 hours. So the department developed procedures to ensure that WellPAP complies with the staffing requirement in the contract. And we confirmed that they had the procedures in place, and they were on a test basis confirming that they were required, that WellPath was providing the required staffing for the contract levels. Now we're going to go on to 2018-05. This had to do with risk management. We had recommended risk management division implemented procedures to ensure that the contractor maintains the required insurance coverage as required in the contract, including listing the county as a co-insured. At the time we did our engagement, there was some different changes in insurance coverage based on what was on the contract. Risk management has implemented procedures to ensure WellPath maintains the required insurance coverage for the contract. And we confirmed that the required insurance coverage is being maintained. It's on file in risk management. And we also confirmed that the county is listed as additional co-insurer. And just another point to add to this, because we found this finding in several of our audits, we're actually looking at risk management and looking at the procedures they have in place countywide to make sure that the county is receiving the insurance coverage certificates and all the right insurance is being maintained. So that's another engagement that will be coming to you probably within the next couple of months. Moving on to 2018-06, this we had recommended that the jail medical division develop adequate procedures to ensure that health screenings are completed for each booked offender within the 8 hours, which is required in the contract. HHVS developed a policy and procedure to require the 8-hour health screen and included it as a KPI, which is a key performance indicator. On a monthly basis, sample is selected to test to make sure the procedure is taking place. We confirmed that the policy was established in the procedure where they're actually sampling to make sure it's taking place is actually taking place. 2018-08, number A, we had recommended that CCS implement a review process to ensure all healthcare requests are completed within the required time frame. HHVS developed a procedure to ensure the health requests are triaged timely, and then they randomly sample each one to ensure the procedure is being filed to make sure that the healthcare requests are being triaged timely. We confirmed that the procedure was developed and the random sampling verification process was actually taking place. Number B, healthcare request form include all the vital information for proper processing of the request. The department developed a procedure to ensure the health requests are triaged timely, and they're also ensuring that adequacy of the documentation on the forms to make sure everything is checked, everything that needs to be completed is completed. And then they're also randomly sampling part of the triaging just to make sure that the procedure is being followed and the healthcare requests do have all the information they need. We confirmed the procedure was developed, that random samples were selected and tested to ensure the procedure is being followed. Number 10, the recommendation was that the department develop a procedure to ensure that the KPI monitoring is taking place to make sure that they're actually have the KPI monitoring in place. At the time, what it was is the vendor or CCS would submit their KPI reporting, but there was no verification to ensure that what the vendor was submitting was actually taking place. So what the department did, they developed a procedure to randomly select some of the KPIs to ensure the results are accurate. And we confirmed the procedure was developed and confirmed that the sampling was taking place for the validity of the KPI results. Actually, I have a KPA here, but it should be KPI. Number 12, we recommended that CCS management implement additional procedures to ensure grievances are assessed, resolved, and recorded in the sheriff's grievance database within the required 10-day response period. The department develop a procedure to ensure all healthcare grievances are addressed within the required 10-day time period, and all essential information is included. Grievances are evaluated and conclusions are documented. And the department is going to sample grievance each month of the quarter to ensure the procedures were being followed. We confirmed that the policy and procedures were implemented. Over monitoring the healthcare grievances and responsible parties are clearly defined. Now I'm going to turn this over to Crystal and Andy. They're going to go through the recommendations that are either not applicable or are in process. But are there any questions over the ones that I've done so far, the ones that are implemented?
Any questions? Okay, please proceed.
Okay, Crystal, Andy?
Okay, if I can direct your attention back to recommendation 2018-04, it starts on page 3 of the report. It has A through G. All has been implemented as stated by Ms. Cora with exception to G, which can be found on page 7 of the report. It's currently in process. We recommended Wayne County Health, Veterans, and Community Wellness Management implement procedures to ensure that CCS WellPath use of pool nurses is in accordance with the contract, and inquire as to what steps CCS is taking to reduce the need for pool nurses. Our testing reviewed that, we reviewed that of Health, Veterans, and Community Wellness, which is to ensure the staffing and payroll is accurate as reported by CCS and WellPath each month, which includes the use of pool nurses. Per our discussion with Health, Veterans, and Community Wellness Management, plans to modify section 3.26 of the contract when the next option for the contract renewal is presented later this year regarding the 30-day limitation on the use of pool nurses. However, they still remain the intent of hiring permanent nurses. If the plan action is implemented as described, the action appears to sufficiently address the recommendation. However, we will provide a follow-up review in the near future to verify that the described action has been implemented. Therefore, with the permission of the chair, because this ends my presentation, I would like to turn it over to Mr. Ray for the completion of the presentation.
Thank you, Crystal. Go ahead, Andy.
Good morning, Andrew Ray, Principal Senior Auditor. I will begin on page 10 of the CAP report, and I will start with recommendation 2018-07, for which we recommended contract compliant entry of mental health encounters into the MH-WIM system. The status of this recommendation is in process. Commission Resolution number 2019-643, dated September 19, 2019, approved exercising the first option to renew the contract with CCS. The OAG has confirmed that HHVS intends to submit the second contract option for renewal for approval in the near future, including the request for date change of report submission and the extension of the contract for an additional year. If the planned action is implemented as described, the action appears to address the recommendation. A follow-up review may be necessary in the near future to verify that the described action has occurred.
And add to this one too. This is actually what is going through right now at the yesterday's meeting, the Health, Human, and Veteran Services. The contract is before the Commission for approval. Moving on.
Next is 2018-09, for which we recommended the implementation of a real-time electronic medication administration record. This recommendation is not applicable. Health, Human, and Veteran Services have explained that discussion with CCS determined that the proposed software changes were impractical and that the recommended corrective action could not be implemented. While we understand that the proposed software changes could not be implemented currently, we continue to believe that a more real-time electronic medication administration record is important. Therefore, while we deem the action not applicable at this time, we would recommend that HHVS continue to work in conjunction with CCS to see if such software change could be made in the future. Follow-up review may be necessary in the near future to verify that the described action has occurred.
And Andy, if I could add on to this, this might be a good time that as the department is getting ready, or shortly, they'll be putting out an RFP for the new jail medical services contract in the future. It may be something they may want to include in their RFP, is, you know, if the provider could have some more real-time medication administration records.
And is there anybody from the department like to respond to this?
Yeah, this is Dr. Keith. The discussion so noted, the software used by WellPath at this time does digitally record the administration of medication at preset prescribed times throughout the day, just as you describe in the OAG report, but it does not record the real-time medication administration. So there is a digital record of the administration of medication for each inmate, but the software does not log a real-time recording. So noted that can be something that we can include in the upcoming RFP for future services as a desired data report.
Yeah, that would be appreciated, and thank you.
Okay, Andy?
Okay. Next is recommendation 2018-11A, for which we recommended implementation of a procedure to ensure adequate monitoring of the contractual education and training requirements that should be met by requesting a listing of all training provided to CCS employees. The status of this recommendation is in process. We confirm that HHVS has implemented a procedure to ensure healthcare personnel training records are adequate. The process to verify training records will consist of random selection of files and review for proper licensure and certification. HHVS will assess the annual training requirement by reviewing the training records near the end of 2020. If the planned action is implemented as described, the action appears to sufficiently address the recommendation. A follow-up review may be necessary in the near future to verify that the described action has occurred. Next is 2018-11B, for which we required CCS to report continuing education on an hourly basis rather than by the number of classes. The status of this recommendation is also in process. HHVS management indicated that CCS will be requested to assign an hourly value to each training module. It will also, it was also noted that the intent is for healthcare personnel to receive 12 hours of training annually, not necessarily 1 hour per month. HHVS will assess the annual training requirement by reviewing the training records near the end of 2020. If the planned action is implemented as described, the action appears to sufficiently address the recommendation, and a follow-up review may be necessary in the near future to verify that the action described has occurred. Next is recommendation 2018-12B, for which we recommended that CCS ensure management provide all essential information in grievance responses, including restating the grievance, how the grievance was evaluated, and the conclusion for all grievances. The status of this recommendation is also in process. The policy and procedures for handling health-related grievances have been issued. For discussion with HHVS management, the actual review of these grievances will commence in the near future.
And
yes.
I guess, and to that point, with the COVID, has there been an increase in grievances, or does somebody from the department like to comment on that?
Yeah, again, this is Dr. Keith. I can go ahead and make a comment on that.
Sure, sure.
I am not aware that there has been an increase in the grievances. As you know, the average daily population of the jail has, decreased by approximately 50% over the course of the COVID, and the grievances, have not increased, to my knowledge, relative to the decreased daily population in the jail. We are continuing to monitor the grievances and respond to them as we were, prior to the pandemic. So the whole process of reviewing any kind of inmate grievances and complaints is still in place, and we are going forward with the verification of that. Katie Snow from our department, who actually is involved in reviewing this. I don't know if you have any additional comments, Katie?
I do not, Dr. Keith.
Now, just a question for somebody that doesn't know, that would be me. Are we addressing these grievances within the required time frame?
Yes, that's correct. The required time frame for a response to the inmate via the sheriff policy is 15 days. So the sheriff has to get a response back to the inmate within 15 days. The medical grievances, because there are grievances, of course, outside of the medical area that we don't necessarily have anything to do with, but the ones in the medical area, the requirement for WellPath is to get a response back to the sheriff within 10 days that would then allow the sheriff to go ahead and process and input the grievance in the system and get a response back to the inmate within the 15-day overall requirement. So the monitoring, in fact, does have a 10-day timeline for processing with respect to medical grievances and the WellPath response back to the sheriff.
Thank you.
Andy?
Recommendation 2018-12C, for which we recommended HHVS implement procedures to ensure that grievances are being adequately addressed and within the required time frame, the status of which is in process. The policy and procedures for handling health-related grievances have been issued, including the timeliness of addressing the grievance, as well as documenting all essential information associated with the grievance. Per discussion with HHVS management, the actual review of these grievances will commence in the near future. If the planned action is implemented as described, the action appears to sufficiently address the recommendation. A follow-up review may be necessary in the near future to verify that the described action has occurred. This concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy.
If I could just add a few comments to this.
Sure.
This engagement, when we originally did it, when we started out, we had a few issues trying to get things resolved. But I think this is one of, I believe, a success story for our office and also the department. We worked well with, at that time was David Brooks, Dr. Keith, Kamal, and Nellie. When we issued our reports, we worked closely with them. They had the corrective action plan already in place when we issued the original report. So then when we came back to do our follow-up to ensure the action was actually taking place, everything went really smooth. And I just want to thank all of them that were involved in this. I know it was a large engagement and we had great cooperation. I think this is, to me, a success story to see this number of recommendations being implemented or just a few that are in process. I think this is a great success story.
And I agree.
Also our auditors for all the work they did on it.
And on behalf of the commission and certainly this committee, I want to thank you for working with the auditor general or staff and us rowing in the same direction. So thank you. Okay. Anything further?
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Can I get a motion? Receive and file?
Mr. Chair?
Sure. Commissioner Kleen.
Yeah, I will make that motion to receive and file and forward to the board. But I also wanted to comment pretty much exactly what the Auditor General just said. This bringing in a company to run, to privatize the jail health services was very new territory for the county. And I think this audit and the way that the department and the Auditor General work together on this to resolve these problems is indeed very good. I think it helps everybody in understanding how to manage this. This was a topic at Health and Human Services yesterday. The underlying contract with CCS WellPath is a 2-year contract with 2 one-year renewal options. Yesterday at Health and Human Services, we moved forward the last of the 2 one-year options for approval of the full board. And the department is sending out an RFP right now on this. And I think all of the work in this audit will really help inform the administration in terms of when they're evaluating the audit or evaluating the proposals that come in as a result of the RFP. So I do want to thank everyone involved here. I think this really was a good, an excellent exercise, and I just don't want to lose track of the fact that these are people that are our guests, and we are responsible for them in the jail. And the better we can provide the health services, the better we're doing our job as a county. So I move it, Mr. Chair, for receive and file and forwarding to the full board.
Do I have a second?
Support Dobb.
Okay, who seconded it?
Me, Commissioner Dobb.
Okay, you sounded different. Okay, it's been moved and supported. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Ayes have it. Next item, Madam Clerk.
I'm going to stop sharing.
Okay,
Okay.
great.
Moving back to old business, we have communication from Wayne County Legislative Auditor General forwarding the Office of Legislative Auditor General's consulting report on budget-sensitive issues / review of the county's comprehensive annual financial report.
Hey, Sherelle, if you allow me to share the screen, I'll do our presentation. One second here. Okay. Tell me if you see it up.
It's there.
Yep, okay.
Yep.
Hey, we're going to continue our presentation on the budget-sensitive fiscal year 2019 CAFR. We left off on page 27 of our PowerPoint, and it's actually page 21 of the report. So I'm going to turn over to, actually, do we have any guests from Department of Management and Budget? They could introduce themselves. I see Matthew's online.
Matthew Dubay, Deputy Chief Financial Officer.
All right, thank you. Mike, if you can begin the presentation, we're actually on page 21 of the report, 27 of the slides.
Thanks, Wisnowski, Audit Manager. The first item is the Guardian Building, First Street Parking, pages 21 and 22 of the report. The Guardian Building had a net operating income of $88,000 for fiscal year 2019. This is compared to a net income of about $487,000 for fiscal 2018. Total occupied space increased in the Guardian Building to 95.47%. Vacant space decreased to 4.53%. It should be noted that 511 Woodward, which was 30,000 square feet, was sold during fiscal year 2018. The total operating income from the First Street Parking Garage was $1.3 million for fiscal 19, prior to a transfer to the Guardian Building Business Unit. It should be noted that First Street Parking Garage contains 1,543 parking spaces. 806 appear to be leased below market rates for the downtown area. The Commission should request monthly revenue / operating reports for both the Guardian Building and the First Street parking structure, including any special events revenue and/or agreements with valet companies. You should also request a status report on the number of parking spaces which are leased at below market rate and the possibility of leasing those at or above market rate.
And Matthew, if you got any comments relative to that, feel free to chime in.
I did see recently an email from the building management company on the below market leases. Those 806 spaces are long-term lease agreements. And so as those lease agreements expire, they're renegotiated, and the building management company is attempting to get market rates when those occur. With the advent of COVID and a shift to remote working, I don't know that anybody knows what the long-term impact is, but their goal is to get market rate on lease renewals or new leases as they come up.
Well, thank you. Please proceed.
Next item is the Land Bank, page 23 of the report. In May of 17, an intergovernmental agreement was approved between the Wayne County Treasurer, and the Wayne County Land Bank Corporation. According to the agreement, maintenance funds are earmarked as consideration for land bank's administrative and maintenance expenses. Those are a per property allocation of $450 in maintenance, $100 admin, times the number of properties that contain a structure, $200 maintenance, $100 administrative, times the number of properties without a structure, and then an additional annual $200 in maintenance and $100 in admin fees, times the number of properties owned by the land bank. From the period of October 1, 2016 through May 11 of this year, the treasurer transferred just over $2 million. However, we did an analysis of those expenditures recorded within this business unit. Those are $1.1 million, resulting in $879,000 in maintenance funds that have not been spent as of May 11th of this year. This does not include any expenditures that may take place through the remainder of the fiscal year. The agreement expired May 1 of 2020. We noted that the treasurer's office transferred $434,000 to land bank on May 4th of 2020 in accordance with the intergovernmental agreement. Therefore, all actions per this IGA have already occurred for fiscal year 2020. Land Bank anticipates that the IGA will be extended for another 3-year period prior to the end of this fiscal year. The Land Bank received no appropriation funding from Wayne County in fiscal years 2016 through 2019. According to their audited financials, there is no budget appropriation from Wayne County in the next fiscal year.
Just a little background on this. These are the properties that the treasurer transfers to the land bank, the ones that haven't sold at the final auction. So the monies he's transferring is to maintain those properties.
Commission should inquire what will be the disposition of the excess maintenance funds that are transferred and not expended in the fiscal year, and the need for the treasurer to continue to transfer funds to the land bank at the current rate. Next item, implementation of the enterprise resource planning, its ERP system.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Dobb?
so that was Felicia, if it's okay on this point.
Oh, I'm sorry. Felicia, you guys sound similar. Okay.
Good morning. So just to this point, with regards to the treasurer transferring funds, so I would say there's a question of legality of whether he can do so. I had this discussion with Corporation Counsel and they have a different opinion, but the money that's being transferred are for properties that the treasurer no longer owns. So he is giving up title to those properties to the land bank. And then in turn, after the fact, still providing maintenance of properties that are no longer within the ownership of the treasurer's office or the county. So the question becomes, can you properly use those funds to maintain? Now we know he can maintain them while he owns them, but similar to if another person or for a municipality purchased a property under the right of refusal, or if an individual purchased a property from the auction, when the treasurer would transfer title, he wouldn't then maintain those properties. So the question becomes, can he actually legally use those funds to maintain properties he no longer have ownership of? It would seem more appropriate for the land bank to seek an appropriation from the county once those funds are transferred over to the county through the general fund and include them in the budget. So I did raise those issues in the past when we became aware of the IGA a few years back, and Corporation Counsel did have a different opinion and advised that they thought that the process was legal. I still think it's questionable, and since that issue is on your audit, I'll raise it for your information purposes. Thank you.
Well, and I guess, do we have anybody from administration here? Or the treasurer? Anybody from treasurer's office here? Was that the treasurer? It sounded different. Okay, is there anybody from Corp Counsel at our meeting? Nobody? I think it's
Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, Andrew, just to know, Andrew Kandrivas on behalf of Wayne County Executive.
Okay. Welcome. What do you think?
I think it's a battle of the Titans, and Corp Counsel needs to weigh in on the opinions of this. This isn't, as Ms. Johnson has mentioned, it's not the first time this has come up.
Well, but we want to make it to last, and we can fight long distance. So are you willing to row with us and agree with Felicia? Just say yes.
I can't say that, Mr. Basham. I'm sorry. I can't speak for Corp Counsel. I haven't looked at that opinion in a while, and
well,
if we
okay.
want to have discussions on this afterwards, it'd be good.
Yeah, seriously, how can we resolve this? And it needs to be resolved. I don't like it going year after year. So this has happened before.
Sure.
It's going to happen again unless we resolve it, and it would benefit the administration and the commission.
No, Mr. Chair, if you allow me.
Okay, I will.
I will talk to Mr. Heath and revisit this again with Corp Counsel, and then I'm sure we can talk to your counsel and see what we can do with this.
Okay, and just tell them that all they got to do is agree with us. Okay, I sent my message. Thank you, Andrew.
Mr.
Seriously.
Chair?
Yes.
I could just add too, we've had this discussion with Felicia for many years now, and this money that's being sent to the land bank for the maintenance, this would be money that would be coming over to the general fund through the forfeiture foreclosure process and through the DTRF. That's just my
Point well taken. So anyway, so you've agreed that we'll have a meeting, and we're going to do a follow-up on this, aren't we, Ms. Cora?
Sure. Yes.
Okay, I appreciate that. So so we can't fix it today, but we'll fix it in a short amount of time, correct?
Correct.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Chair?
Yes.
I just emailed Cheryl Jordan, who I believe is the interim land bank director, and I believe she's attempting to join the meeting as we speak.
Okay. Cheryl, are you maybe correct it today? That would be great.
Maybe we could come back to this one when she gets on.
All right. Can we do that then? We'll just come back to this. Okay. Let's moving right along.
Next item is the implementation of the Enterprise Resource Planning, ERP system, page 24 of the report. M&B Division of Financial Reporting requests the commission approval of a contract with Cherry Road Technologies, not to exceed $14 million, to configure, build, and implement Oracle's Enterprise Resource Planning system. This solution is meant to meet the county's requirements in replacing obsolete systems. This was approved by the commission in June of 2019. On April 30th of this year, the commission approved a modification of this professional services contract, which will allow the Emphasis SimPro cash management software to interface with 3 banks instead of the 1 to meet the needs of the county treasurers. This modification will increase the total not to exceed amount of the contract from the $14 million to $14,014,400 for the period of June 6th, 19 through June 5th of 2024.
Through the chair, this is Joe. Can I step in real quick on this one?
Sure. Go ahead, Joe.
For the 14, the 14,000, that contract was changed, and the 14,000 is now actually folded into the 14 million of unused, part of the 14 million that was unused. And also there was another 3 million plus modification that was approved this summer for additional services. So really that contract is really up now just over 17 million.
Okay.
Okay. M&B advised that this project will allow the county to migrate from aging hardware and software, namely older versions of Oracle, PeopleSoft, and JD Edwards, to a new ERP financial/human resources budgeting and reporting system. County uses PeopleSoft for human relations and payroll transactions, and it uses JD Edwards to process financial transactions. Implementation for this project is estimated at 3 to 4 years. Per M&B management, the project was not evaluated for cost savings, rather the focus was on replacing the current system, JD Edwards, before it fails. There's no backup plan should JD Edwards fail. Project expected to cost approximately $30 million. Commission should request updates on the status of the ERP system implementation, including estimated completion dates and what plans are in effect should JD Edwards crash.
And somebody from the administration want to talk about like monthly reports on the guarding building, First Street Garage, those JD Edwards, if it fails, what do we do?
Matthew Dubay, Deputy CFO.
Sure.
There's no easy solution to either PeopleSoft or JD Edwards failing. These are core primary systems of the county. It takes years to replace those functions, as we know from the implementation that we're doing now. There is no off-the-shelf, plug it in and start using it system that's going to meet our needs. And so if JD Edwards were to fail, and if we were not able to bring it back up and run, we would have a critical failure of numerous of our processes, such as billings, collections, bill payment, so all our vendors, managing all of our grants. And so these, and same thing with payroll. If the payroll system goes down and we can't bring it back up, we would have payless paydays until a substitute solution could be brought online. At this point, Oracle would be our substitute solution. We would have to speed up implementation and probably cut some corners to get it up and running well enough to start getting paychecks out, and then fix the system down the road to get it to run efficiently and effectively. These systems are well over a decade past their anticipated useful life. When these systems came online, they were intended to be fully upgraded every 3 to 5 years. We haven't had an upgrade to JD Edwards since 2006. And so we're really living on borrowed time with these systems. And the best thing we can do is to keep the project running, fully funded. We've been working, the steering committee's been working very well to address issues as we run into them. This is something we haven't done in almost 25 years now. The last time we implemented when we implemented JD Edwards was 1998, 1999. And so this is not something that we have a lot of experience with. And thankfully, we have some great contractors that are helping us dot the I's and cross the T's, helping us comply with our requirements. Michigan is unique compared to other states in our state laws and our state constitution. And Wayne County has its own set of ordinances and charter, and we're trying to make sure that we're compliant with everything we can possibly compliant with. At the same time, we're trying to make sure that we are not customizing the system, and we cannot customize the system. One of the problems that we had with JD Edwards, and one of the core problems that we have with PeopleSoft, is we have so heavily customized these systems that we have to support them almost ourselves, because outsiders don't necessarily understand how we've tweaked and modified them. If you think of it as, you go out and you buy a car and you decide to buy a Ford. Well, you don't go and put in a Honda engine and a Mitsubishi transmission and Chevy tires, and the car is a Honda. You own a Honda, it'll be a Honda for its life. You can go get an oil change anywhere. You can go to any Honda mechanic and get it serviced. You have a Ford, same thing. When you start hodgepodging things together, it becomes extremely difficult to maintain. It becomes extremely difficult to fix when it breaks. Our systems are highly, highly customized. And it's also very antiquated technology. We have a lot of issues trying to match up the old style of data that we're capturing in our current systems and the more modern data that should be captured in a modern platform. And so there's a lot of obstacles. And so we want to make sure that we're doing it correctly, but at the same time that we are very cognizant of the fact that we're all living on borrowed time.
Yeah, and I appreciate your comments. And it sounds like the county's trying to do what the auditors are suggesting that they do. It's just a matter of, can we get it done on a timeline that works for everyone? And nobody knows that. So any comments from the Auditor General?
No, we're good with it.
Okay, okay. Well, moving right along.
Mr. Chair, I just
Yes,
noticed that
sorry.
Cheryl Jordan has joined the meeting, and I don't know if you wanted to go back to the land bank issue before moving on to the next item.
Yeah, could we go back to the land bank, and could somebody
Sure.
from the auditor's office comment on that?
Yeah, this was what Felicia brought up regarding the transferring of funds from the treasurer's office to the land bank for the maintenance properties, for properties that no longer belong to the treasurer. This was Commission Counsel's opinion that whether this is legal. So Felicia may want to speak to it too.
Yeah, could you go ahead, Felicia, and update Cheryl so she can know what we're talking about here?
Yes, through the chair. So the concern, which has been discussed in the past, is whether or not the IGA between the treasurer and the land bank to transfer funds for maintenance purposes is appropriate and in accordance with the statute. As you know, when the treasurer transfers the properties to the land bank, he also transfers title, which means he is no longer in ownership of those properties. Yet after he transfers title, he is still providing maintenance funds for maintenance purposes for those properties. And if the interpretation of the statute is that he can provide maintenance funds to the land bank after he no longer owns it, then that means he could provide maintenance funds to Wyandotte, to Brownstown, to Ecorse, to any individual owner because he no longer owns the property. So, and there's no exception in the statute for the land bank. It would seem more appropriate that the original process by which the land bank was included in the county's budget and the land bank received funding for maintenance purposes and other purposes through the county's process would seem more appropriate. So the question here is whether or not the legality of that IGA and whether the treasurer can indeed transfer maintenance funds from the forfeiture DTR fund after he no longer owns the property in which he is providing maintenance for.
So, well, welcome, Cheryl.
Hi.
And so do you agree with our commission counsel? Just say, yeah, we're good to go.
You know, this would be a 10 to 15 page legal brief on both sides. There's a lot of different issues going on here. Under the General Property Tax Act, the properties that go to the land bank are essentially deemed an involuntary transfer, and they're only transferred when they fail to sell at either auction, and also when that community refuses to take title to those properties. So in other words, when these properties are not sold at first auction, not sold at second auction, then the communities are asked, hey, communities, you want these properties for free? The communities say, no, we don't want them. Then and only then do those properties come to the land bank. And if they didn't go to the land bank, they would stay with the treasurer. And under the GPTA, he is permitted to spend funds on maintenance. You know, so instead they go to the land bank, and we've got this agreement with the treasurer where he'll give us some maintenance funds so we can clean up the blight, we can board them up so drug dealers don't go inside, we can clean up debris. And so it's really become a crucial function of the land bank maintaining these properties in their inventory. So yeah, I can't tell you that yes, sitting here today, I would agree that it's improper. I think after I would do a full legal briefing, it would likely come down that it is very proper. You know, for everyone's knowledge, there's introduced yesterday some major changes to the General Property Tax Act, and some of those include some reference to land banks and this procedure because of the Rafali case that came out in the Supreme Court regarding surplus proceeds. And so I got it last night. It was introduced yesterday, and I'm trying to go through it. So a lot of issues going on here, but certainly the land bank needs those funds so that they can properly maintain the properties and so that they don't sit as blighted properties in those communities.
So there's no way you see the land bank reimbursing the county?
No,
That's money that would normally go to the county, as I understand it. Of course, I'm not a lawyer, so, but normally money that would go to the county, treasurer's keeping, the county's actually losing money is actually where I'm coming from on this.
No, sir, because the treasurer would use those funds anyway for the same type of maintenance. but the land bank gets to spend special care and attention to those. And actually, like I said, with the revisions to the General Property Tax Act that were introduced last night or yesterday at some point, they take away that provision that allows a transfer of surplus funds to the county's general fund. Rafali and the other cases that are following are going to be removing the ability for the treasurer to keep surplus. It's going to be removing the ability to transfer a surplus to the general fund. So, you know, keep that in mind. We're probably going to be losing that altogether, but either way, the treasurer would be keeping maintenance funds. That is a specific item he's allowed to spend, you know, DTRF funds on.
Well, it's certainly something that certainly raises a discussion. We could probably go on a long time on this one, but it's a work in progress, and we appreciate the input from Corp Counsel and Commission Counsel.
No problem.
Thank you. Ms. Cora?
Moving on to slide 33.
Next item is Department of Information Technology fiscal year 2019-20 Tech Refresh, pages 24 and 25 of the report. According to Department Management, an original budget of $805,000 for this fiscal year been reduced to approximately $400,000. The department's invitation for bid, which was initiated earlier this year, was halted due to COVID-19 crisis. As of May 2020, the process has resumed. IFB is expected to be requested in the near future. According to department officials, the decrease in the current year budget will have a direct impact on the amount of equipment that can be purchased this fiscal year. However, they're looking forward to expanding the project for multiple fiscal years. Commission leadership should request of department officials, and when a complete refresh will be completed and its total cost.
If I could add on to this, I think based on the CARES fund, there's going to be some, I guess you call it tech refresh, but it's to allow departments to get laptops, which will help them in the COVID situation. So I think there is some type of a tech refresh, but it's using CARES dollars in a different manner. Okay, go ahead.
Next item is succession planning, recruiting, staffing, open FTEs, page 26 of the report. According to the director of the Department of Personnel Human Resources, the Employee Engagement Division of Personnel Human Resources continues to make progress with their strategic priorities, including identifying key positions, critical positions, and potential successor employees. This division is comprised of only 2 employees. So technology from Bullseye Engagement was recently acquired to assist with the succession planning implementation. They began configuring and implementing this new technology in October of 2019. Training and deployment was to begin at the beginning of 2020 and hoped to be completed by the second quarter of fiscal 2020. This original estimated completion date was determined in November of 2019, which was prior to the COVID-19 pandemic. Commission leadership should request periodic updates from the department on the progress of the implementation of this Bullseye technology to help with succession planning and the impact due to the delays from COVID-19. Next item is personnel staffing shortages further impacted by COVID-19, pages 26, 27 of the report. Steps are underway for succession planning, but there's been difficulty hiring and retaining employees due to the recent hiring freeze and furloughs due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Shortage of personnel could be significant. Hiring and retention of employees is crucial for succession planning. Key positions may not be filled, thus jeopardizing achievement of business objectives and delivery of mandated services on a timely basis, losing institutional knowledge through attrition of employees. The table on the chart shows the budgeted versus actual FTEs for the past 3 fiscal years. The fiscal year 2019 FTEs are as of September 30th, 2019. As you can see, the difference between budget and actual has increased to 719 at the end of fiscal year 2019. Commission leadership should request periodic updates from Personnel Human Resources on the progress of its hiring initiatives and retention policies in light of the COVID-19 pandemic, and how the hiring freeze could jeopardize departments from achieving their business objectives and delivering mandated services.
Mike, I think we can just add on this next one is the upcoming reporting changes. I believe there's been some changes in GASB where some of the reporting changes do not have to be implemented. Matthew, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this.
I believe that's correct due to COVID, but
Right.
Matthew?
So we don't have to go through this one.
Okay.
Matthew Dubay, Deputy CFO. GASB 95 was promulgated by the Governmental Accounting Standards Board a few months ago, and it basically pushes off implementation dates of a number of significant GASBs, including the ones that we would have been implementing now in the near future. And so the county has opted to implement GASB 95, which is essentially not doing these other implementations under their original timelines, but pushing them off into the future as a way of allowing the M&B, with our staff shortages, with the furloughs and layoffs, we're very short-handed, and so implementing new GASBs would have been, a very, very significant challenge. And so we're kind of benefiting from this GASB, allowing us to defer these implementation dates.
And just in conclusion, I'd like to thank Matthew Dubay and his staff and Kevin Haney and everybody for their responses to the Budget Sensitive CAFR Review Report. And I know I might be getting a little ahead of myself, but many of these actions we had requested as I'm going through the budget instructions for the budget hearings. I see a lot of these are already implemented. They're going to be recommended as part of the budget instructions. So I wanted to thank the Ways and Means Committee, Terrence, Mary, and Mark Abel for taking our suggestions and including them into the budget instructions. And that will conclude our presentation.
And I'd like to thank all participants, and I'd like to thank the administration and also our staff for. I don't think there's been a better time that we've ever worked together than what we're going through right now. So I appreciate everybody's input.
I'm going to give the screen back to Cheryl. Okay.
And next item, Madam Clerk. I need a motion. I'm sorry. Motion to receive and file.
I'll move to receive and file. Daub.
Support.
Clark Coleman.
Okay, it's been moved by Commissioner Dobbs, supported by Clark Coleman, Commissioner Clark Coleman, that is. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. Next item, Madam Clerk.
E, such other matters as may be properly submitted before the committee.
There are none other than stay safe.
Public comments.
Is there anybody from the public? Could you unmute everybody's phone? Anybody from the public that would like to comment? Going once. Anybody from the public that would like to comment? Anybody from the public that would like to comment? Next item, Madam Clerk.
Adjournment.
Okay, can I get a motion? It's been moved by Commissioner Clark Coleman and supported by
Commissioner Daub.
Commissioner Dobb. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Color.
Aye. All those opposed? Ayes have it.
I say to change color.
Okay. Have a great day.
You too, boss.